have a chat about it, perhaps at the back of the room, and find out what points you'd like to make, and then have a spokesman come and present it to us, rather than everybody going over the same ground. We can get on with the nitty-gritty parts of the meeting and leave the planning applications until you've actually made up your minds what you wish to say. So if people that want to talk about the planning applications would like to go to the back of the room, there's pen and paper back there.
Right.
And that person can speak on behalf of everybody, and it will make life a lot easier for everybody. I hope that's acceptable.
I've got a few notes, but you're absolutely brilliant. I'm not exactly the flavour of the month at the moment, but I'm happy to do it if you would. Would you like? I've got some notes.
Ask Roy. I'm just very on the
Which one's one? Do you want a bag?
he's there.
Because I've got some notes here, which I've typed up this morning.
We are expecting 2 other councillors to turn up, but we can start by going to the general meeting. Yeah, we call it. So there's declarations of interest regarding agenda items. No? Seconded dispensation for agenda items. To confirm and approve the minutes of the previous month's meeting of November. Copies circulated to councillors. Is everybody happy with the... Yes?
The vexatious claims, the actual proposal that's brought forward, I know this is the words that I'm having you now as you for the council, not for the council here. I didn't have to say here, I'm having you now as you, not necessarily as It's subtle. I listen to the tape and I'm sure that having unanimous view of the council rather than full council together. Rather than which is slightly different to the majority.
So would you be if it said unanimous?
Yes, absolutely. Unanimous agreement.
Yeah. Propose to amend the
No, that's what it was in the minute is. I've actually listened to the tape and that's what the proposal was. It just... Yes, it's just the way it was said, that it said unanimous full council, it's unanimous agreement.
Yeah. But the thing is... Other than that, is everybody happy with the minutes of the previous meeting?
Fine, thank you.
Updates and decisions.
There's 2 planning decisions come through. One today was farm holiday. Roberts Lane, Shalfleet, and that's variation 3, to no retention of access. The other is the land adjacent to the farm, Shalfleet,
Okay, we'll leave the planning until later and then do the other two. Is anybody here wishing, got any views on the South Boldner or the Wellow Cottage Main Road Wellow proposal on the planning application? No? Okay, can I have the views on the South Boldner alterations extension to commercial levels?
Not particularly close to next door neighbour, but
Yes, thank you.
Wellow Cottage Main Road West, road out with the Derek and West. Any objections?
Mrs. Walters told me that the reason that this wanted to be filmed and recorded was in the interest of truth. Now, what I'm going to say about Weather Green, I assure you, contains absolutely nothing which isn't true. And I'm very happy to be interrupted if you think I'm saying something which isn't true. So in the meantime, please, Mr. Walters or Mr. Main, whichever name you're using today,
David will do fine.
please take all of your recording equipment.
sensible, but if it can be added to the list, it's appropriate. We should be producing one list with a set priorities and not two lists.
Chairman, may I point out that the land sale is for Newbridge and Ningwood, and it's not a parish, it wasn't a parish embracing the whole parish. So it was even...
But it doesn't cross over that, and that's why I just wanted to...
No, it doesn't cross over Newbridge. Can I have a proposal then, Mr. Colton? I'm not proposed. Your second. All those in favour? We'll write a sensible letter to them for you. Thank you very much. Now then, Mrs. Quinn? Mrs.
Right, good morning. I'd be grateful if everybody could listen to what I've got to say, because although I'm speaking on behalf of the Coastal Defence working group in Yarmouth, which has been going for many years. It also will affect flooding eventually with climate change, and those of you who listened to the news this morning would have heard that this is probably heading for the warmest year on record in this country, and globally there are problems as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assume that you have all in the past few years seen the shoreline management plan for the Isle of Wight that was mooted in 2010. Unfortunately, the money ran out for our part of the coast, but it's going to be revisited with a new consultant in January, and it'll run for 18 months. So if you have any property that backs onto a stream, a river, or a little bit of the coast, I would urge you to get involved, because if you have the period of public consultation, and if you're not involved, then you may end up getting something you don't want. Right. The Working Defence, the Coastal Defence Committee grew out of flooding in Yarmouth, and also the Harbour Commissioners, and I was a Harbour Commissioner with the environmental brief from 2001, when the trust ports were totally turned upside down. And I've been working in the Yarmouth area and at Newtown for, I don't know, 30 odd years now. So all I'm going to do is to give you a breakdown of the points arising from the last meeting. The group that comprise the Working Defence group, we've got a very, very fine geophysicist with very, very strong links to the Oceanography Centre at Southampton. We have very experienced local people who've been born and bred around the area and have watched the changes with climate change over the last 10, 30 years. We've got very good contacts in Hampshire. I work with Wildlife Trust in Hampshire as well, so I have tried to get Hampshire expertise over to the Isle of Wight, to the meetings that Stuart may have attended, I think, or probably before your time, Stuart. And that has been very instrumental. And unfortunately at the moment, because we're so strapped for cash over here, the council is unable to find the money to actually liaise more with Hampshire. I think we must understand, as we live on a very vulnerable island geologically, that whatever they do in Hampshire is going to affect us on the Isle of Wight. Right, so at the last meeting, I'm just going to now go through points of fact. Tim Adams will be the new Harbour Master at Yarmouth, as from January. Chris Lish has done 8 to 9 years there, and before him Charles Douglas. The Yard Bridge, now this affected all the people in Shalfleet. Originally the Isle of Wight Council wanted to take it as, to operate it by remote control. Now those of us who, and all of us depend on the emergency services. There were real ructions around the Yarmouth area because the Yarmouth Harbour Commissioners have always operated the bridge. So the ambulance and the fire brigade and any other emergency services. So there was a lot of public outcry about it, and quite rightly in my view. And thank goodness, I'm not sure for what reasons, but I suspect it could be financial. You'll be pleased to know that the Yarmouth Harbour Commissioners have been given the job of controlling the opening of the bridge for not the next 1 year, but for the next 24 years. So that is a real plus for us, because it does affect us so badly. Excuse me. Okay, so I'd like to thank Sally for responding to, Sylvia, thanking her for the report. The report that all the parish councillors have had is the second one. And if you're interested, and you're interested in climate change, that's available at the Harbour office. And I suspect in the parish office, you'll have copies of it. And you'll have copies there also of the previous plan and report. What we've tried to do is encourage people to take ownership of their own flood defences. Because you'll know, if you listen to the radio or you read a broadsheet, that 2 weeks ago, the people of Snettisham in Norfolk were virtually told, sorry, there is no money for the flood defences, you're going to have to fund your own. And they have been pushed into a situation where they're fundraising for their own flood defence. I've got rather strong views about that. Okay, now we join with Hampshire on the Solent Forum and SCOPAC, and there have been people at Brook who belonged to SCOPAC in the past. It's bringing all the coastal communities and officers of various organisations together to discuss how best we take the Solent forward. And coastal defence is one issue. And it's rather sad, but you know, if you listen to the statement that Nick Clegg made about flooding, if you listen to the news this morning about climate change, we know that the Isle of Wight is down the bottom of the pecking order, that money available will go to places like Southampton and Portsmouth. And the big flood defence now nationally will go, as you know, I'm sure some of you like me came from London, will be to the Thames Barrier and to the Humber. That's where the bulk of the flooding money is going from central government. It's very hard on us over here. We're a poor community, and it's going to be quite difficult if climate change goes on and storm surges continue and increase in number. Now, we also look at the Newtown area, and with the coastal, and this is why I wanted to talk a bit about Shalfleet, that, when it was published, and I suspect it will be the same with a new one, which is published in 2 years' time, that the whole of the Newtown estuary will be allowed, let the sea do its work. No active intervention. So just remember that if you live near a stream in our parish. No active intervention. The sea will do its work. Now, we had brought in money to Yarmouth from the mainland and from European money, and it helped us work with the local community in Yarmouth, and particularly the school. And obviously, with the link between Shalfleet and Yarmouth now through the schools, the children will be well educated on climate change and the environmental changes around them. And I endorse what Jill said. So much of what Jill said is so true, but we need to make the younger generation very aware so they take charge of their own destiny later on. Now, this applies very much to the people at Shalfleet whose houses were flooded, and the people at Newbridge whose houses were flooded 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. We are liaising as much as we can with the Environment Agency. They have had cutbacks, but they're the only statutory body left that can really squeeze government occasionally to get more money. We have trialled some dismantleable barriers. Those of you who live in Shalfleet, if you walk to the back of Shalfleet Mill, you'll see they've got metal gates. Unfortunately, the people at Shalfleet Bridge who were flooded have had to do a temporary block wall around their back door. The water came up about 10 inches a couple of weeks ago. And of course, many years ago, as Steve well remembers, you know, when we had the bridge with the aquajacks on it, we nearly lost a house at Shalfleet Bridge. So we are working, and when we get information, then we help the people of the Yarmouth area to understand how far we're getting. It's very difficult. It's taken us over 18 months in some cases to get an officer to come and see them because everybody's having cutbacks. The marine conservation zones, I'm sure those of you who've got boats, those of you who fish, will be interested to know that the new consultation for the marine conservation zones, which stretch from Yarmouth to Cowes, albeit we've got contiguous eelgrass beds where the young fish spawn, that is going to be re-investigated, public consultation again in January 15. And so watch that space. And I'm sure you read the local paper, although I understand some people don't, and they don't even use it online, which is a shame, because you will be asked to raise some money probably for Yarmouth Pier. We're very lucky at this end of the island in having Yarmouth Pier. And at the end, the hammerhead that Waverley hits from time to time takes us 18 months to get our insurance off them, any money out of them. And they're in financial trouble as well. So there will be an appeal made to the Heritage Lottery, but there will be an appeal made to West Whiteheath. I'm sure many of you take your kids up there, and many of you have crabbed up there, and it's a great pier, and it's worth protecting and raising money for. Now, just very briefly, the flooding at Newbridge and Shalfleet. I own the bit of land downstream of the bridge. 2 weeks ago, when we had that flash flood, which we're not quite sure why it happened yet, it wasn't only heavy rainfall, we think, but the river came up 8 feet in my woodland. It has been up 12, 13 feet in the woodland, so my woodland becomes a lake. How can I tell? Because the debris is up on the footpath that people walk through my woodland. My point is that over the last 5 years, with increasing high storm surges coinciding with high spring tides, I have been the recipient of 2 5-foot benches, 4 wheelbarrows, 8 8-foot railway sleepers. Now, okay, eventually we had to dispose of and get them out somehow. And it's down to the riparian owner. So anybody who's got a property backing on a stream, you are responsible for keeping that bit of the stream clear. The Environment Agency doesn't do it, the Water Board no longer exists. It's up to us to keep our stretch of the river clear. And I'm appealing, I really would like to ask the Parish Council if we ought to put something in the village news, because nearly everything that ends up jammed under Shalfleet Bridge, and possibly under Newbridge, comes from the houses upstream. This year I've pulled out probably half a ton of wood, enormous planks of wood. I've still got planks of wood 8 feet long in my trees. I can't get them out. I've only got a small grappling hook and I'm not strong enough anymore. But there is a responsibility now, as we all know, with the cutbacks, which are going to go on for at least another 4 or 5 years, as the demographics of this country change, for us to be responsible for our own furniture in our gardens. And I wondered if it could be put either in, I noticed, is Val here, Val Chin here? No, but if it could be put maybe in the village news, if somebody could write something for the village news, encouraging people upstream of Shalfleet Bridge to really take care of everything. I mean, one chap's lost 2 benches, and even the 3rd bench is nearly got carried away this year. So there is the responsibility. Now, lastly, with the consultation plan, I've got to have it back because it's another one I have. With this new one that's coming out, with a new consultant, and I don't know if we know who it is. It was Atkins, I think, last time, who a very competent group. Mainland people. If Newtown has no protection, so no active intervention, which is a technical name, it means that over time, with climate change and this unpredictable weather that we've all been experiencing the last 4 or 5 years, then there will be erosion. If the rivers get blocked and you've got high rainfall, you will get a backup, and the flooding around the tips of all the little rivers, including the Roger Brook at Newtown. So you've got the Calvary, you've also got Akers Stream. You see, that will all back up and people will get flooded, no doubt about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, it's very interesting.
Next meeting of the committee is not till March next year, so I'll give you all the rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will be putting the report in the village news. Yeah, we will make sure that goes in.
Our neighbour's garden.
Okay, we'll go back to the main planning issue now, the proposal houses at Lawrence Lane, access of Main Road, Shalfleet. Have we got a spokesman, please? Would you like to?
Madam Chairman,
Is there anybody that...
well, we had very little chance here. I mean, we are into localism, and I mean, with all due respect, we had some very interesting speakers who asked us to keep quiet, which is fair enough. I've been a speaker, I know what that's about. But we've had very little chance here to formulate a spokesman. John happens to have looked at the figures and crunched them, but others of us have got important things to say as well, which we haven't been able to feed John in any way.
Well,
So
anything that John hasn't covered, you can very... I'll allow you to speak, and if somebody wants to speak for me...
Well, yes. There's two arguments against this. It's not just everybody's against this. And there might be the majority of people here probably are against it, and I understand that, but there is also a case for it.
Who's actually for the planning application?
Well, I'm for it. I've spoken to Bill.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, past parish councillor. I would pass parish councillor. Roger Saunders was here. Where is he now? I can't see him. Has he left? He was he's also a past parish councillor. We've lived in this parish 250 years. So I think you are looking at a greater perspective than many others.
Okay, well I'll ask Mr. Rose to speak, and then I'll ask Mr. Cowley to speak as well.
Can I just say, I live in the village, and we just heard about people who've lived here for hundreds of years. My relatives have been here since 1760, according to the baptisms and marriage certificates. So my family's got a long background. I've also been told that there are a large number of people who can't be here today because obviously they work and they're at work. So don't assume that this is the only people who are not happy who've got comments. There's probably, well, I don't know how many, but at least I've been told 15 or so. Right. Now, my comments start with the strategy. And can I say, I attended the public inquiry in the Isle of Wight County Council core strategy. I attended all the meetings, and I attended everything about housing and transport. And there was no mention at any point during that public inquiry in front of the inspector of anything to do with new housing in the parish of Shalfleet. That's a fact. Now if I just go on to what the strategy document put down, and this is the Isle of Wight core strategy document approved by the council in March 2012, it specifically states that development will not be permitted in the wider rural area of the island unless a local need can be demonstrated. That's fundamental across the island. So for Shalfleet Parish as a whole, the core strategy document has no proposals whatsoever for new housing in this area, but it would be considered if there was a proven need for it. Now, in 2010, the Shalfleet Parish Council, that's yourselves or your predecessors, had a public consultation, and this covered a whole series of items, and I've been told, I filled a form and sent it back, but many people's forms weren't collected. So it's questionable whether the results of that survey actually reflect what happened, what people thought. But just going on the forms that were returned, the Parish Council, in your community plan on page 7, stated that 49 local respondents replied to the questionnaire. Only 49 in the whole of the parish responded to that. But that's the basis of your document. Of the people who responded, 31 considered that 2 topics were more important than everything else, And those were, there should be no more housing in the parish. You did a list of 47 topics, and number 45 was the provision of additional housing. In other words, the consultation, without any doubt, those that responded were not in favour of more housing anywhere within the parish, not just in Shalfleet, but in the parish, Oldner, Newbridge, whatnot. So very clearly, the parish council own consultation shows this is not acceptable, is not required, and that, in addition to the county council main document, means it's a non-starter. It doesn't conform to the planning policy of the county, of the unitary authority. And if you look at the statistics in the Shalfleet Parish document, it's probable, and it's not easy to work this out, that probably less than 5 people who attended the exhibitions actually considered the provision of affordable housing in or adjacent to the village to be either important or desirable. So that just confirms that there's no great mass of people in the parish or in the village saying they want more housing. So you as a group and your own policy is really that this should not be supported. You don't support it in your own documents. So that's the strategy, if you like. As far as I'm concerned, and I think majority of people, and they'll probably put their hands up if they agree. Do you agree with what I've said? Anybody not agree? 3, 4. So this is just confirming that the majority are actually agreeing with what I'm saying.
The majority of people here are
Majority of people here are agreeing with what your own consultation document says. That's the fact. Now, if you're in the strategy, having moved on, there's a whole series of what I would call technical issues that many people have comments on and are unhappy with. And this, in the previous application, they made comments. I've had a letter from the applicant that deals with a few of these and responds to certain people's comments, but has no mention whatsoever of the strategy. Obviously, the applicant can't respond to that. He's accepted my comment, which I put to the county council, as fact. He hasn't turned around and said this is wrong. He has accepted my statement about the core strategy and Shalfleet Parish Council's own document. He has not responded one iota in his letter, and you may have had this letter as well. But going through, there are a lot of other things. The water problem, Southern Water say this can be dealt with. I noticed from the plans they're basically having to put a new sewer for the runoff water, not the foul sewage, the runoff water, all the way from that development to the creek. It doesn't fit in with anything else anywhere else, because the existing system from the Fleetway estate goes through my house, my garden, and there's a tank in the vicarage. And whenever you get heavy rain, that tank fills up and can't take any more. In fact, it blows the lid off the tank on at least 3 occasions. So there's no possibility of connecting into the existing system. So the plan shows a new pipe going down the main road. What they don't say, that's got to go all the way to the creek, not to fit into anything else. So although it may be acceptable, that is something which money can provide to get around that problem. The school question has been raised, and in response, the letter says, there's a lot of children who come from outside the parish. I don't see this as a reason for saying you can therefore have more children in the parish to go to that school. The reason children come from outside the parish is because that is a good school. They come from parts of West White and elsewhere, and there's no real scope to expand that school. In here it talks of possibly another 10 pupils, but that's not really a big number. The school has been expanding over the last few years in its own right, because it's such a popular school in West Warwick. Just wondering what else. There are lots of what I call technical points, and maybe other people can just pick up on the points I haven't covered. Anybody want to question anything I've said?
I dispute that you've lived here all your life.
I didn't say I had.
Oh, no.
I said my wife's parents have been in Shalfleet.
If you work for West Sussex County Council,
No, I
did you
didn't.
commute there
No,
every
I
day?
I went to school. I'm a minor person. I went to school.
Can we please not get personal?
Thank you. Right.
Can I just make a general point? I was involved with Trent in setting up the high-speed pipeline that takes the sewage from West White. Most of you may know that it doesn't pick up sewage from any of the villages all the way through to Sandown. In Shalfleet, just upstream from you, you've got an American ultraviolet sewage system. But when you look at St Michael's Close towards Shalfleet Garage, the sewage system there is an absolute nightmare because it blows up in my neighbour's gardens. We've had the EA out, and you know, I just wanted to make that point because any development has got to have a discrete unit closed system, so it doesn't discharge into the National Nature Reserve. And you know, it's the fluvial flood off. So I mean, I know sewage is not a planning issue, but it should be because it's caused mayhem around Shalfleet for the last few years. And,
It is a planning issue as part of the infrastructure.
Ah, right, but it wasn't for many years.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cowley, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, there seems to be questions about people's credibility here, but I've been on the parish council, my father was on the parish council, my grandfather was on the parish council, and my family have lived here almost continuously for 250 years. So we do have a care for the parish, and we've all demonstrated that. We also know, I was talking to Bill earlier and Roger Saunders, we know people who want to live in Shalfleet and want to live in the parish. And I see Mrs. Stables at the front there nodding her head. I imagine she knows people who want to live there. So regardless, actually, of the survey that was done, we know that there are people who want to live here because they grew up here and they can't live here now because they can't afford the house. I don't know that this scheme is predicated on affordable housing, but if it isn't, it should be, and that's the only way we support it. The core strategy, much mentioned just now, is a core strategy. It doesn't deal with Shalfleet, it deals with a core strategy, and it does say if there is a need. I mean, so it didn't seem to me as though the inspector in Arreton recently needed to be appraised of a need for 87 houses in Arreton, which is probably slightly smaller than Shalfleet, and it's the sort of thing that could happen here, and I think it would be a defence against that sort of scale of development if the parish council thought about supporting one of these applications. The Boulder one will be back soon, and these developers will go to appeal if they're refused locally, and you will get what the inspector wants, not what the Isle of Wight Council wants, what the inspector and the developer wants. This new national planning framework is on their side. Development is to be encouraged, and so you can't just argue against it. I've lived here all my life. I don't want anybody else to live here. That I believe is fundamentally and morally wrong. So please. Thank you. Who was that one?
Oh, it's Bill.
So this one was some sort of here, maybe a bit thin on the ground, but you know, there is a need. Okay, whatever you think about the report that was done, I don't know. We're doing one at Shalfleet at the moment, and hopefully the Yarmouth, sorry, and hopefully we shall have that analysed before the following others come. This is going to be a discussion. How are we?
Can I just clarify one point? The structure plan includes Arreton. It was listed, it's listed in the document, it was discussed at public inquiry, Shalfleet isn't. End of story.
Well, all I can say, sir, is as long as I've been on Shalfleet Parish Council, we've always known there was development on that field.
It's not in the structure plan. There
I
wasn't
don't give a damn what you've got. The church once bought land off there for a graveyard. Tell you that too.
Can we please get back to the matter in hand? And I'll ask the county council to speak, please.
Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Stuart Hutchinson. I represent West Whitehall, which covers the parishes of Shalfleet, Calbourne and Yarmouth. And the sort of thing we're talking about here today is always a difficulty when housing is proposed. And somehow or other, the planning department will have to strike a balance between a perceived need, and in this particular parish, in Yarmouth Parish, the need in terms of absolute numbers is relatively small. Because it is small, just a movement of a few families can affect it one way or the other. But all of the information I have seen, and for about half a year I was Cabinet Member for Housing, suggests that in the two parishes of Yarmouth and Shalfleet, we need somewhere around 30, possibly 40, and this could fluctuate up either way, affordable homes. There are about 7,000 people on the council's housing list. To be honest, a great many of those are so far down the list they will never ever get housing because they're already accommodated. But there are a few people, and there are a few people in West White who are in desperate need, particularly of a small property that is affordable so that they can get on the housing ladder. So that's one of the reasons. Developers put properties where they think they will get an approval. That is one of the reasons why we've seen the planning application come forward recently next to the school, why we're seeing for the second time this one coming forward at Shalfleet, and for the last 2 or 3 years there has been a proposal at Mead, which actually looks far more towards Yarmouth, but technically is in Shalfleet Parish. If you add up all of those developments, you're probably looking at more than 100 houses. That's clearly not necessary. When the local parish plan was done, in the discussions that we had and in the feedback that we got from people, the majority of people were saying, we're not against a few houses. Ideally, we would like perhaps half a dozen in each of the small communities because that's sustainable. The problem is that unless you've got a lot of housing subsidy money, that doesn't happen. And so developers try to produce developments which are sustainable in the sense that they can afford to do it, and that usually means a mix of affordable housing and some open market housing. Steve has mentioned the Baldner housing proposal, and the two have to be looked at together because they're not likely to be both approved. Both of them are exception sites. You're quite right about what you say about development in rural areas, and therefore an exception site has to justify much more intensely the need and the size of the development. The Mead site was originally for 44 dwellings, but about 17 of those are in an Abbeyfield development, so the actual number of houses is far fewer. That's just been reduced by somewhere like 6 to 8. I'm hoping to have a meeting with the planner working on that before Christmas to find out exactly what's happening there. The likelihood, if that one comes forward and is more favourable to planners, the Shalfleet one will be much more difficult. But as Steve has quite properly said, we have to provide something, even though it's relatively small, The trick is getting the right size of development in the right sort of place. Now, in a rural area, there are not that many places where you can put houses. They have to be associated with a viable community. So in Shalfleet Parish, the most likely place is Shalfleet village itself, and at the other end of the parish, closer to Yarmouth, it's likely that the most viable spots are on the edge of Yarmouth. So those are the sort of balances that the planning department will work on, and of course they will always take into account all of the views of local people as expressed through the parish councils. So that's sort of where we are at the moment.
Very quickly, please.
This site has been assessed for between 113 and 189 houses under the island plan, and if it's going to, this is just for 24, and it will be just the beginning of a larger development. A similar site in Freshwater, Camp Road Freshwater, was put for 8 houses on the site, which had over 100 capacity, and it was turned down by the Isle of Wight Council because they said they wanted to know the plans for the whole site. This site should be looked at in the same way. The whole site should be looked at, not just piecemeal, little bits, because if it does, it's going to be built piecemeal and not properly. If it's going to be, in the end, 189 houses, then we need to know this, and it needs to be planned properly.
Yeah.
Mrs. Cowley, quickly, and then we'll have...
Very quickly, yes. Surely we don't all feel that the only way young working people should be able to move into the parish is if one of us dies. Because if we are so against development, then what we're suggesting is, until a house falls vacant, there is nowhere where young people can move in. And we need young people, working people, to keep the parish viable. Stuart mentioned viable communities. They rely on having people with strength and energy and income and children to keep them lively. What we are objecting to is the greedy developers who want houses piled in, giving people no breathing space, making sure they get maximum profit, pretending they're doing it for altruistic reasons, establishing an abbey field and so on to look after old people, when what they're doing is making the largest possible profit. So it is our job very much to look at all those proposals and thin them down and get to the point where we are saying, yes, we would like to see small, affordable, sustainable development that keep our community alive, but don't cram in people just for the sake of their own profit. And Boulder initially, and this one initially, they've been pushing in as many houses as possible in the hope that in the end, half that number or a third of that number will be accepted. We are at the mercy of developers and the sort of money they want, or people buying up as second homes things that should be affordable to families, leaving young people unable, and this is what Yarmouth suffers from, house after house being bought up as a second home. Shalfleet, thank goodness, only suffers to a small extent.
At the moment.
At the moment. But we must establish some homes for young working people, or we kill the vitality of our community. And I don't want comfy and beige and clean slacks and bedroom slippers yet, thank you, Mr. Walters.
Won't be those short. Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for your views. And now the council will now make a consideration. Who would like to start on this?
Madam Chairman, haven't we already had a vote on this in August?
This is a different planning application.
Yes, we did. We
This is
turned
a-
it down.
This is a revised application. It's totally different.
It's very similar, but it is actually, it counts as a new revised application.
The
The
public
numbers
meeting
are the
here,
same.
and we turned it down after the meeting. I was the only one who voted for it.
Yes, yes, that was the last one. This is very similar, but it actually counts as a new
This
application.
is a new
And so
application.
you have to make a decision again.
Can we start at the far end with Brenda?
I'm worried about the sewage. Whatever they say, it doesn't run uphill, and that field is on the slope, so everything is going to go down that way, and it's going to go into that brook that runs down into Single Lake. I'm not happy with things going on.
I've listened to the intense arguments of for and against, so whatever happens, we should record those down as comments. My concerns are that I accept that development and housing is needed in the parish. My concern has always been the volumes and the size of it, and how that relates. I think as somebody mentioned about it relates to need, a housing need. I will openly say that I don't give credence to a housing need that's as assessed, and I know that most recently I think it's Bill Murphy has also said it's got no staging in the formal planning process in terms of the housing need that we've got, no formal standing. I am concerned that a lot of these bigger developments are driven by that housing need, which I don't necessarily think holds water in its entirety of it. There is something that's needed, and the development needs to be broken down into smaller chunks, acceptable, Stuart says, in terms of some bits aren't viable. I also think it's probably worth looking that there was a strategic housing needs assessment by GL Hearn produced for the county council, wasn't it? Yes. The whole of the rural and West Wight, as they called it, which was anything from Knighton to Chale to Bryston, including Shalfleet and a few other kind of areas, the whole need on that was something like 13 houses per annum for over the next 5 years. And so I suppose what I'm saying is that it's the volume I'm concerned about. If that volume is driven by the housing needs, which is conflicted by effectively the greater strategic housing report from GL Hearn, I'm not convinced that if it is driven by that housing need, that the volume is right in terms of 24. It should be a lot smaller than that, and that's where I stand.
Thank you.
I too am concerned about the treatment, the disposal, the traffic of sewage. I also feel that Mr Tyrrell's point that the statutory consultative responses and material considerations here, although they have, we have some reports in from highways and sewage and those sort of things, that the one that Mr Tyrrell mentioned is quite valid, and that there is insufficient statutory consultative response. And I too feel that the number of dwellings is more than is required. Thank you.
Well, I come from, I was totally opposed to the Ashline development because it wasn't done properly by the developers. They didn't research the place properly at all. Traffic surveys, checking the ground, just wasn't done correctly, and therefore it gradually faded away. So I bring that history back into this. But I'm not totally familiar with Shalfleet. It's just that I understand Fleetway expanded far beyond its original intentions and managed to get through. It makes me, I get suspicious, rightly or wrongly, about what's going on. I believe that the chap who owns the land obviously wants to make money out of it, fair enough. I've got no qualms with that. I also opposed, obviously, the survey that we had at the time, because I thought when I filled it myself, I thought it had weaknesses or places which didn't make any sense. So I don't believe that there was a true need for everything here. But I can only agree with my fellow councillors here that small developments, yes, but larger developments, I feel opposed to it. I don't know enough about the geology or the engineering possibilities. I spoke to the presentation the other day, and I tried to find out those in favour of it to get their perspective. I did speak to Bill Burke's son, I believe, but he didn't say to me, yes, we must live here. He was more concerned with if there was a cheaper rent or something like that. So things to do with water, sewage, etc. are concerns. They glibly say, yes, we're going to put in a swale tank, is that it, to absorb excessive water, things like this. I don't know what really goes on there. I know that Shalfleet Creek is full of algae on the, when you go and watch the tide go out. That's come from, where? All over the place, I suppose. Nitrates from any fields, whatever effluent is coming out, I don't know how it works. With regard to the area, I would say the greatest concern if I was in Shalfleet and if I had a young family, where do my children play? What do they do in the evenings after school? Where do they do things? Would it be much better to have some kind of field or place for children to go? So I don't know what else I can say about that. I wanted to be fair and take it from an unbiased point of view, but you can see the way I'm going, I'm not quite in favour of it, that's what I'm going to say. But I would listen to be corrected about things I know nothing about. You know, I don't know everything, but that's just what I'm going to explain it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, when I filled in the community plan, I filled in support of social housing. But what I had in mind, affordable housing, sorry. Okay, affordable housing. What I had in mind was a small amount of affordable housing. And to my mind, this is too much. But I do hear what you say about the difficulties of getting small projects off the ground, but maybe that's something that the parish council should be looking at, as to how that could be achieved, because it seems to me that too big a development for the village. My opinion.
Okay, thank you. I'll pick up on Steve's point about Alex interested in cheaper rent. Of course he's interested in cheaper rent, because he can't afford the rent probably that he's in at the moment, and that's one thing. But hopefully affordable housing, that's why people are afraid to live here, because they can't afford the rent. You look at Yarmouth, and the rent is £700, £800, £900 a month for a 2-bedroom house. So, you know, that's the reason that the youngsters aren't here, is because they can't afford it.
Is there any guarantee these houses are going to be?
They have to be 80% under the Spectrum Housing are in charge of it. There's a local renting agreement that will come in, which will have a scale down.
There's a range of things you can do to make it affordable.
Yeah.
The rent carries a 20% discount.
Yeah.
And where properties are available for sale, what we want to see more of is what are called shared equity, so that people can buy a little bit of the house, gets them on the ladder, helps them to move onwards and upwards.
Excuse me, can I just add something there? Yeah, and being one of the younger families in the village, there's no infrastructure in place in the village for young families. We still have to go out of the village to shop. The kids don't necessarily want to stay around here. I have to spend a fortune every week on either giving my child the money to get the bus into town, or we take her into town. Now, how are these people that can't afford to buy a home be able to afford to do that for their families? It's not cheap living in Shalfleet, and it shouldn't be made out that it is, regardless of rent. You've still got the additional cost of shopping, keeping your children occupied, when they go off to parties or whatever, you can guarantee you're going to have to go to the other side of the island. What young families are going to want to move out here?
It's a planning issue, I'm afraid.
No, but it's a social issue.
It is a planning issue, because it's about sustainability of development. So,
And infrastructure.
So in theory it is a planning issue, because it's about just questioning whether it is sustainable to actually have it, which is a material consideration.
The other thing is, we have tried to get somewhere for the children to play. I believe some years ago the land at Fleetway in the middle there was considered until everybody kicked up so much that lived there that we dropped it.
No, certain people kicked up. Not
Well,
everybody
yeah.
kicked up.
It got very unpopular, I believe. I wasn't on the council at the time, but I mean we could make that into a play area, but I don't think that would go through. We one of the reasons that Mrs. Cowley was on about West White Sports Centre and the Green was for somewhere for the youngsters. I've said this before. Boldner had 100 houses built in the last 30 years, and there has been absolutely no problem in Boldner whatsoever with the vast increase of houses. There's been a little bit of trouble, we expect that in the community, and nothing's changed there. So, well, I'll just put it to the vote and see how everybody...
Could I make a point on that, please? Boldner is very near to Yarmouth. Yarmouth has a lot of facilities and access to the mainland very easily. Shalfleet, we're in between nowhere. Where Yarmouth freshwater, you have to go, as Kirsty has said, by bus or by car and to Newport. I came here 31 years ago with 2 young children, knowing at the time I would always have to drive them everywhere they wanted to go. My son was a very keen sailor and we went to Cowes all the time. Most of the time he was at middle school, he cycled to school. This would no longer be allowed because the roads in 30 years have become much more dangerous. I'm not against a small development, and I think Withy Field, when it was built, was excellent, but stuck in the middle of the field, which has a very bad drainage problem. The access is going to be on the main road. When Fleetway was built, nobody considered access to the main road because it was too dangerous. Fleetway was meant to have 68 houses, and it goes on to Warlands Lane. And I think I'm not against housing, but I am against where this is because it's too dangerous and too much water. And you say
Oh, not in session. No, I'll turn it off.
Reception site, the identified local need in the community plan is for more retirement homes for infill and small developments of up to 10 units. The young of the parish needing affordable housing will be better served closer to the rural service area. Overdevelopment. We've heard from the people, the applicants, that the sewage system is not at full capacity. I personally think we ought to query that, because I think there's quite a lot of people that live in the area would dispute that. I think that needs to be queried. I don't know how everybody else feels, because anybody that lives here knows the problems that have been had. Yes, and no plans are known to improve the situation at the local treatment plant. Well, speaking to the gentleman, I'm sure he said, and I don't know whether you picked up on this thing, he said that there was no problem with the foul water, it was only the runoff.
Yeah,
but I thought there was a problem. I'd like that queried.
No, they've put that in writing. They've said discussions with Southern Water confirm there is capacity for foul water, however existing surface water drainage.
Well, I'd query that, quite honestly. I don't know how everybody else feels. Brenda, you know about the problem here and
it's foul sewage that comes up.
Water supply.
The cheap
Water supply is at low pressure on occasions during the summer months.
Do you want that put in? Yeah.
Medical services are overstretched due to lack of doctors and qualified staff in the whole of the West White. There is no provision in the area, not just the village, in terms of sports, games, playgrounds and suitable meeting places, particularly for young of the village and environment. Sustainability. The development will not generate jobs or tourist and recreation facilities in the area. And then it goes on about the design materials. I don't think we need to put that in. Acknowledgement of the conservation area across A3054 is not shown in the design and access statement.
Isn't it?
No, we have to leave it. But on their plans, they've actually included an environmental report.
Did you want to take that out then?
Take that out, because they actually are going to put back boxes, etc.
What about broadband and education?
I'll leave the broadband out, because it's not really.
Okay.
This is out of character. There is no acknowledgement of the Isle of Wight's policy. Well, there is a dark skies policy in the business. Yeah, there is, because I've seen that. They were going to have downlights and
Yeah, we have a down.
they were going to.
There is a dark skies policy.
Yes,
Yes.
and on the development papers that I saw, they were actually acknowledging the fact that they were going to have these lights that protected as far as
All the
possible
new
the
lights,
dark
focus,
spots. So that
everything
needs
was
to
focused
come out
down.
then.
Does it mention affordable housing?
If the housing, no, this bit over is about a housing association not being involved, so
We should take
no,
that out.
take that out, because that a housing association would be involved in a spectrum housing.
What about the bypass? Mention of that.
Bypass?
It says here bypass for Shalfleet has long been recognised but not actually on.
I think we're all clear about this.
Should we take that out?
And our next relatives to be 6 foot under by the time that happens, don't it? I'm really quicker to go to, when we get this bridge, we go to the mainland and back to the
Bridge! Don't stop on the bridge! Risk of flooding is put down here.
Yes.
Have we covered that?
It's all to do with the drainage,
It's
isn't
all
it?
to do with the drainage. It could be put in with the sewage system. Question whether the sewage system.
I'll mention flooding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was a back.
Okay. So you're happy if I
Yes.
go through that?
Yes, and,
Put that through, fine.
Okay then, folks. Thank you very much. We'll quickly get on to the next one, which is Shalfleet Wall, Shalfleet Churchyard Wall. To agree to send a letter to the Isle of Wight Council supporting the urgent realignment / reinstatement for this, following a RTA
Road traffic act.
2013. Now, I think anybody that's dealt with the church would know that it never is straightforward to do anything on it.
Because I've been working on it for what seems like forever. What happened was a car ran into the wall, demolished it, and I got the money from the insurers to rebuild it. It was suggested, I think by John Whitman, that once the wall was down, it took an opportunity to set it back.
Yeah.
And that would help that pinch point by the traffic lights, where when you've got one big lorry trying to get past another, there's literally inches of room. So that was agreed as a good idea. And I first spoke to this, to the guy who would be responsible for finding the money, a chap called Mark Griffin, who ran the client side of the highways department. Can we do this? Yes, absolutely. I'll see if we can get the money on health and safety grounds. Mark Griffin then left and went to work for Portsmouth. In comes the new guy, Tony Toynton, and I speak to him about it. Yeah, absolutely, a great idea. We'll see if we can get the money on road safety grounds. I heard about 10, 12 weeks ago, yes, it had been signed off by Bill Murphy, who now actually runs highways as well as planning, as well as housing. He's about the only chief officer we seem to have left. But it was okay. Tony Twyton's now left. He's left early because he had a dispute with the administration. And one of the contracts guys in the office is now working on it, and I'm trying to get hold of him. He's the only guy left, so he's snowed under. I mean, from my point of view, I would appreciate a letter going to the council saying, please pull your finger out and get something done. Because it feels as if I'm swimming against Churchill at the moment. Church is happy to have it done. Island Roads have said they're prepared to do it, and they will obviously maintain the extra little bit of highway. I understand the finance has been provided, but it's actually getting a formal agreement. Yes, we can do it, and when? Because the longer we wait, the more the ground starts to subside. And
Just like I'm going to say.
Can someone else leave?
Yeah. So,
Well, we just need to send a letter then, don't we?
yeah.
Can I just say it's very dangerous to me to walk up
Yeah,
that pinch point
recognise
to
safety.
get to the post office.
Can we have a proposal to send a letter to?
Yes.
Yeah, and second, all in favour? Job done.
There are increased
Is
costs.
that everyone in favour?
Yeah.
There are increased costs due to the delay.
Okay, folks, let's get on to the next thing, please. Can we get on to the next? It's the police report. There isn't a police report. Okay, to agree to pay invoice from Kane and Co for Parish Council annual insurance premium £663.11.
Can I just say that we are in a fixed term contract with them. I have used them in a previous life, and they are pretty much one of the best parish council insurance people around. I've done a lot of, looked into this a lot in the past, and they are very good. But we are in there for another year, and then we can review it again if we want to.
Proposer? Seconder, all in favour? Fine. Clerk's reports, copies circulated to council. Councillors, hard copies are available at the meeting at the back very soon.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay then, finance, to approve the list of payments.
Could I just, I know we're not going to dwell on my report, but there's just a couple of small things.
Sorry.
One was under seats. I have had communication with Daniel Gregory, he's in the process of doing the work. He phoned me yesterday to say he's found a picnic bench at Woody Fields and a seat on Blacksmith Green opposite the office. Got rotten sections. I hope you don't mind, for £40 extra he's going to put new timber in. It seems stupid to paint the old. So that's another £40. So I've had an invoice for £500 from him, which I'd like to get the cheque signed when we do checks. And just the other thing is, I am endeavouring to update the website. I know everyone's keen for that to happen. I've spoken to Jamie, Isle of Wight Geek website design. He's kindly putting updates on for us free of charge. We're also going to do a bit in the village news to ask if anybody has places of interest in the parish or surrounding area that they want to go on the website to let me know, and we'll do our best to get them on. And just one other thing, I'm in the process of moving, and I'm also on annual leave over Christmas, so my last day will be the 18th of December, obviously I only work 3 days a week, and I'm back in the office on Tuesday the 6th of January. So do bear with me, because there will be a gap when things don't get done.
Now then, finance, can I have a proposer for the pay these? Have anybody got any queries on any of them? No? Okay, can I have a proposer, please? Who can actually sign the checks? Brenda can sign the checks, so Brenda will...
Again?
Okay.
Are you happy to do the one for Dan and Gregory, and I'll put it on the list for next time? Is that okay? And there's also the book to sign as well.
Send it down. Okay, now
Is that your pen?
go down here on the floor. Okay, then the next thing is to discuss and agree format for future agendas. Request from Council McGurk that planning applications be brought to the front half of the meeting, and for each applicant 5 minutes is provided prior to each application for applicants, for objectors, etc.
Shall I,
Yes, I'd like to do
It's
this.
really, I'm not intentionally into doing it. It's all about feedback we've received, and we can wordsmith this to however we want. The principle being is that we bring planning permissions forward, we give the opportunity for people to speak. I think one of the bit of kind of counsel I've got that perhaps we need to have a little something in there that if people want to need more than 5 minutes between pro and anti, as it were, then perhaps they do need to book some time in so we can reset the agenda. But generally speaking, that to have 5 minutes before planning applications for people to speak and bring planning applications at the front of the meeting, and we can wordsmith it around that however we like. But that's just the principle behind it.
Okay, any comments?
It's difficult to give us a definitive amount of time, isn't it? Because obviously like today required quite a bit for one type of development. I just wondered if you can have it so it's not fixed 10 minutes or something like this.
The one fear I've got is if you're not careful, if you've got 6 planning applications and everybody has 5 minutes, we're talking about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We've been very good with big applications, with having an open meeting like we've had now, where we've given people a chance to talk. We've had special planning meetings before now where we've dedicated a whole evening to one planning application.
Yeah.
We did it with Ashlar, I believe. We definitely did it with Bolton Mead. Big applications we tend to look on differently anyway and give people a chance to talk. But personally, yes, I don't think there's any problem with having it at the beginning, and I think it's a good idea because I don't think people that come purely for the planning should sit through a lot of stuff that they're not interested in. You know, it makes sense to me. I don't know how you feel.
Steve Carroll's gone now, but at Yarmouth he said at the last meeting that he didn't say just how long it went on for. I don't know if there was
Well, no, that was slightly different. I think that we'll, at the January meeting,
we're going to discuss
another proposal around the open time, which is slightly different from planning. But we'll wait till January for that now, because the agenda is quite congested today.
So, could I have a proposal for this, please, if everybody's quite happy with
May I
this?
propose my
I
name?
don't think having it at the beginning might prejudice a decision about any planning.
Well, having it at the beginning, we have to hear what the people have to say, and that has to be taken into account in how we look at planning applications, doesn't it? We have to listen to what the people have to say.
After all, it's not our own opinion, it's we're representing everybody, so we need to listen to as many as possible.
hopefully we get a chance to research it in the first place. If you can get a certain amount of information online, it doesn't give you everything.
And of course, there's things that we haven't thought of.
Yes.
We're not a closed book, are we? We're trying to be an open book.
Yeah.
So you...
If I can propose my own proposal.
Yeah, of course you can. Seconder, please. All those in favour? Pass. Right, now then, to cover...
Excuse me, can I just butt in?
Yes, of course.
Is that all we're discussing on the agenda? There's nothing else? Are you all quite happy with the layout and the rest of it?
We're doing the rest next month, aren't we? If there's anything else we want to bring
That's it.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah. We thought we'd put this one in
Fine.
in January or February. It all depends how the January meeting goes, which looks as if it's going to be very this evening already in the nicest possible way. Right, to discuss cover stroke part-time help for the clerk.
Do you want me to speak then?
Yes, please, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very difficult one, because as you know, I work 16 hours. Some of that is, well, mainly it's in the office, covering the office. There's also checking the play areas, and with there being 8 notice boards throughout the parish, it does take me an hour to go around and put up notices of every meeting. So there is outside office time as well, and I also try and keep up to date with emails on a Friday and Monday from home. There was quite a lot of backlog when I started. I am ploughing through it. There's still bits and pieces that have to be addressed, and I am conscious that it is quite a busy parish. I do prefer lone working. I don't really want anyone in the office with me, But there is going to be occasion like Christmas, holidays, and you're talking probably 5-6 weeks a year, if ever I was off sick, that nobody knows all the systems in there. I don't think Susanna, who is now moved on to Bryston, would want to come in and pick up a part-time role. So the decision is really, and I've always felt it would be great for the island to have a couple of local clerks that you can phone up and book in for when you're on holiday. There isn't anything set in stone like that. There are a couple of ex-clerks that you might be able to call on occasion, but then of course they wouldn't know the office setup. So I just wanted really to put that seed there, that I personally feel it would be good to have somebody who, even if they just maybe did some projects for us, maybe put in for grant funding for projects, just have that somebody on the peripheral that we could pull in when needed, that had an overview of the office and do with the Isle of Wight Council, contact for various things. I just really wanted you to have a think about it.
Well, because we always did, before now, we have had an assistant clerk. Up until Susanna came, Susanna was clerk to John Whitney. And then it went down to Susanna. And I think, personally, that having seen all the work that Sarah's got, that for the office to run more efficiently, we ought to think about having somebody that can come pop in and book in for a week. I mean, book in for the 2 weeks when she's on holidays, as we said, in the house, also very busy periods. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I've got some comments. I think there's separate issues about the number of hours you do and whether that needs to increase or decrease. This all seems to be about having not an additional permanent help, but temporary help that you bring in for holidays and or
busy time.
High days
I think also that you touched upon something there that I think this really has to be linked to is again its specific objectives or deliverables that we said that if by the business as usual you can't get certain things done, but by bringing somebody in on a temporary basis, we're able to, improve the website or accessibility of information or produce the annual plan or something like that, then by the help in, I'm absolutely with it. But I don't think what we're getting into here is a permanent thing.
No.
So yes, if it's on that basis of temporary binding for specific objectives, I think to move us forward, I think it's a great idea. If it was just a case of to keep up with the day-to-day grudge, then perhaps we need to look at if we can cut any of that grudge out. But if it's to move us forward, then yes.
Are there any financial constraints with this? It's not going to cost too much.
Well, we have to pay somebody.
Exactly, I just have no idea what you pay.
What I was going to say was, is it possible to see the budgets? Because we're making decisions like £500 here or there, but I've actually no idea how much money there is altogether.
I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, if I can just add to that one. I mean, this is partly why I put it on now, because the finance working group is going to be meeting after Christmas. I haven't had time to do a full, I know what money we've got, but I haven't looked at how the budgets are for each slot and how much we've spent for each bit of the pot. So I just thought if we just bore this in mind when we're looking at the budget for next year, and maybe even if we just at this point put something aside for extra admin, then rather than not, and then get in a pickle maybe later on in the year. It was really just to get your thought processes going and to think if we are going to do it, then we need to obviously look at the financial implications.
Yeah, so at some stage we actually look at how much money there is
Yes.
and where it's, what the priorities
Yeah,
are.
the finance committee meets and looks at last year's finance and then ups or downs. I mean, sometimes you've got a one-off cost for this year that won't go in next year. You might have a grant that came in last year that won't come in next year and things
But
like
we'll
that.
be able to vote on things with the knowledge of what there is
Yes,
and then
yes. You'll have
because
a
otherwise
list
it's just
with all of what each section, grass cutting, insurance, wages.
And if you said no, then we wouldn't have to
elections.
But we can all agree priorities then.
Yes.
So that's,
Yes.
everything can't do everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think we also have to bear in mind when we do the finances that at the moment we're not capped as a parish council, we're not capped like the other white councils. So now is the time that if we are going to up our precept, is the time to do it and maybe put in a few contingencies. That's just a warning really.
So are we all in agreement that we look at this?
Yes.
Absolutely.
In principle?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, play areas. Oh, sorry, we better have a vote on that, I think. All in favour? Nobody against. Now then, play areas to agree to pay for a new dog sign using powder coated aluminium panel at a cost of £29.
Do you want me to just speak on
That's
this?
the play area.
If somebody thinks it's controversial, just take a vote on it.
Yeah, just take a vote of that. Is that all right?
Oh, that's nice. Lovely, can I get up to date?
Is that going to be in how many?
That's the play area.
There'll be children.
It's in the children's play area.
Yeah.
There's an incorrect telephone number as well.
Yeah, the signs.
Public telephone number sign's wrong. So that needs redoing, so we're all in agreement.
Do you
with that.
agree with all of that, do you?
Yeah.
Fine, that's great.
And then we've got Newbridge, we need no dog signs there. And there's incorrect signage giving ex-clerk's telephone number to
I know.
contact in an
I did
emergency.
tell John. That was John's number.
And the roundabout needs repairing. Are we all quite happy with those repairs going ahead? All those in favour? Thank you.
Yeah.
Now then, councillors' reports. Brenda?
No, I think it's,
John?
Nothing in particular.
Hang on.
Meg's
been on.
Yeah, she's been to see me and it's under way. It's going to go on January agenda.
Helena?
Right, I do have the Isle of Wight Association of Local Councils report here, which I can pass on to you. The main thing was that the councillors, Ian Stevens and Dave Burbidge, talking about the state of the island finances, for the first time they actually said that we're going to have to look at joining Hampshire and being again Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. That's, as someone else said earlier on, it looks as though the council can't put its budget for 2018. Jill Kennett is now has been reinstated as chairperson. I know this doesn't sound as though it's parish council, but I attended an East Cowes redevelopment plan through the Isle of Wight Society, and the redevelopment plan needs traffic survey doing in order to have the consultation that we've seen on our material considerations. And they may well get in touch with NAMSAG, because the NAMSAG have done traffic surveys and they can therefore guide or say how things are done over at this end of the island, so as to help with their development over there. So that's nice, a bit of networking. I did see the police with the radar gun on Leeward Hill yesterday. Also with the Isle of Wight Society, I was invited to Osborne House, and the table I was on was with Roger Willoughby Smith, the County Councillor with special responsibility for heritage, and we therefore talked about heritage in West Wight and Boldner Battery, which belongs to the National Trust, and again how important it is for local people to take responsibility for things and not leave it up to councils necessarily, but to have working parties and get things done as needed doing, like clearing streams, and of course always the reporting of where drainage is not happening. So I also mentioned last month about trees that were had come been mentioned by Mr. Tyrrell. Brenda and I looked at it this morning, and the yew trees are just on the edge of the yew trees that belong to Shalfleet Manor would benefit by being trimmed back. They are just on the verge and the road.
Oh, yeah,
Perhaps
So
we can...
I'm afraid it's up to the owners
It's
of the
Shalfleet Manor, perhaps we could drop them a line.
Do we know who owns it?
Michael Waterhouse.
Thank you.
Now the other thing was, yesterday, as I was going along the 305 walk, the Atrals are starting to put their fencing up in the Bognor Park, and it didn't, the Bognor Field, and in last month's minutes we have got a record of what the dimensions were. They were not observing those dimensions in any shape or form.
I noticed that on the way home yesterday too, and I did actually put a call in to Mr. Attrell.
You did as well?
Asking him please to contact me before 1 o'clock yesterday, because I was coming straight here this morning and not heard a dicky bird.
I phoned him.
Yes. Did you speak to him?
Yes.
Oh.
I spoke to Mr. Lewis Attrell, and he said he hadn't been out there, his workmen were doing it. I said, well, it's in the wrong place with what you agreed with Councillor Houston. And he said, oh, well, is it? And I said, well, yes, it is. We've been up there and we've looked. I said, I assume that you've got your guys just to drop everything off and put it upright, and you're not going to leave it where it is. I said, can you make sure you let your workers know that at the moment it's in the incorrect place? And he said he would.
Right.
But he also said that he was, I said afterwards, and also you're leaving the hard standing, people don't know, they're using the Bognor Field because they're doing work down at Water's Edge at Support the Sale, and they're using a part of the field, they're paying for it to put their rocks and everything that they're using for seed fences. They put a hard standing down, and they're going to wait until we look at it to see whether we want to keep the hard standing. And I said to him, if it comes up, why will you put the turf down? He says, we're not turfing it. It would cost an arm and a leg. It's only an old field.
Who said that?
Yes.
Can I butt in again? I mean, I sent a quite a large email to him, putting all the points that you'd all raised.
He said make good.
And I've had no response so further.
They said they'd make it
So we
good.
could actually tell him to get out. If he's not responding to us and he's not happy about where he's not putting it where we say, then I think I'd tell him to get out.
Well, we'll have to, unfortunately, I'm going away on Friday, but so we'll have to have a look at it.
Well, you
We'll be
did try
passing.
and tie it up, and I know you did try and tie it up.
Yeah.
And also, I was told also that at the last meeting, getting dispatched off that he was a man of admirable character.
Exactly.
And what he needed to do.
Anyway, I think it'd be looking at keeping an eye on. Unfortunately, I won't be around to keep an eye on it, and I'm the obvious one because I'm just up the road from it.
Well, I'm going
Come Friday, I won't be available until 23rd. So. Well, his attitude was it was going to cost an arm and a leg, and they weren't going to turf it. They put seed down. I said, well, when are you going to put seed down? You can't put grass seed down in the winter because it won't germinate. And in the summer, you're going to have to make sure you water it so that it does germinate. And he didn't like that either.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't volunteer for keeping an eye on it because I'm moving on Monday the 8th, and I'm in Newport, so I will not.
Well, I'll obviously be going to the play area regularly as I do and checking that, so I'll keep an eye on it.
I'll be driving past this afternoon when I go up to the physio, so I'll have a look at it then, and if there's anybody about and it's in the wrong place, I'll just stop them. That's not.
Can we just try and tie in these loose ends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he's going to leave it as an absolute
It's
quagmire.
going to be a nightmare, isn't it?
It's the whole object of
They
doing it.
said they would make good.
Yes.
Return it to its original.
Yes, they do. Yes.
Okay, who's next then? We've got to get on because I'm conscious of the fact we're running out of time.
Very, very briefly, John and myself have been in communication with people connected with Southern...
Brenda,
Sorry.
Brenda.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was trying to say what I've been doing this week. With contact with Southern Vectors, I think both of us probably think we're fighting against some sort of bureaucratic legal organisation.
Welcome to the club.
But I've spoken to a Mr. Sullivan who said to me he can't do it of his own volition, but if the council give permission, it would take him next to no time to remove the top of one bus stop opposite the Horse and Groom and the timetable and reinstate it, just put it back on the other post that exists by the school.
Is he agreed to do it?
Oh, he said he can do that in next to no time. But
Oh,
he has to
we've got next to no time.
Yeah, well, this won't be recorded anywhere on his, his phone call while I spoke to him. He also told me to get in touch with Giles Good, I think is the, to do with admin with the PFI, from the Argyle Council. And he said, yes, we agree entirely with what you're saying. There is a problem with the EU, so I've been told, the Disability Discrimination Act. Which, quite frankly, in this situation is a nonsense because you can't, if you're disabled, you can't get on the bus anyway at the bus stop opposite the Horse and Groom. The state of the ground is awful. And no one disagrees with this, but he's asked me to put in a request via email. That was his last words I had yesterday afternoon, so I'll do that and see what happens then. I have to say that the Parish Council had intimated to them that when they set up this bus stop, there was a view that there might be hard standing in that area, but like many things, it doesn't happen. My personal view is that on its own is not good enough, because if you get off the bus, which I do, I have to go around the corner and somehow cross the road and hope I don't get hit by traffic. It would need something far safer than that, up along the side, like pavement up about 30 metres. So personally, the safest way of doing things is to put the bus stop, even if it's like a temporary, because they're going to review the bus situation. So the days of buses going up Station Road may not be over yet. I don't know what statistics they do. I know the damage it's caused, but I can't prove it's all down to buses. Plus the traffic outside the school, it's not the best place. But my next stage is just writing this. He told me email it directly to make it official. And what happens may or may not happen.
We have to email through the council, isn't it?
Yeah, he told me to go to the email address.
Okay, well if you can liaise with Sally on that email, then...
Yeah, he's asked me to do it as it's okay, as I shall represent myself and people in Needwood plus the PC.
Yeah, Parish Council did give.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, we did, so that can go ahead. Okay then?
No, apart from the narrative gate, which is still down and off Withyfields, which I've told you about.
Yes, and I have reported that a couple
Great
of
problems
times now.
has come out.
Yeah, it's not
around
good.
Silhouette.
I know they're all really busy. I have
Yes,
reported it.
Stuart.
Just a quick one on the bus stop. I asked for an improvement to the bus stop just on the main road by Hill Place Lane earlier this year. Astonishingly, they've actually agreed to do it, and it'll be dealt with in January. The kids that from the properties in Hill Place Lane will stand knee deep
In
in grass
yeah.
and mud, and because of that they tend to stand on the edge of the road. And they're actually going to put in proper concrete hard standing on both sides of the road. Sometime, well, they say January, February is
Watch this
after Sometimes you think things have vanished into the long grass and they pop up again. That one's a bit of good news. Quick one on parking, which obviously affects every resident in the parish. That free half-hour at Mower Place has now vanished as from Monday. There's a big yellow sign there to advise people. Funnily enough, I've had a lot of folks from Freshwater getting in touch with me to complain about it. I have pointed out that although I'm designated as West White, it's not the whole of West White, and I passed them on to the local John Midland. So that's happening now. Bolton Mead I've already mentioned, so I won't say anything more about that. The ferry changes, I've spoken to Russell Pugh to express concern about the loss of the additional boat on the Yarmouth Limited crossing. I've said that I think it will have a detrimental effect on reliability, because without a spare boat, if we have a failure, the crossings will be delayed or cancelled. I've written to the 4 other island councillors that represent Western White and asked for views and opinions, and I'm arranging a meeting with senior managers at Whitelink with such other councillors that will be involved to see if we can get some reasonable assurances as to the continuance of the ferry service and its reliability, and in particular the early and late morning sailings. And this final one, which is also slightly nautical, I attended the open meeting at Cowes yesterday on the Navitus Bay wind farm. Very clear that unlike the mainland communities who are intensely opposed to it, the island community is taking a different view and recognises that yes, there will be an effect from being able to see the turbine, but the value from the potential income and the jobs it might bring and the increased sustainability, particularly of the port of Yarmouth, was well worth having. And so the general feeling of the meeting was extremely positive. So I just mentioned that as obviously it does have an effect on West White. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, I will close the meeting now and very quickly ask the questions from the audience, because we are due somewhere at 12 o'clock.
Can I just say, you know, that's their sign, that's outside the Greens, saying breathing spaces, it's in the wrong place. It needs to come from up, opposite the old post office, the old post office. It's there, no one can see it. It needs to bring it round on the front road. We've put it there on the main road.
Look at that.
Well, I can come
It's such a big sign.
Yeah.
It's a bit little, it's a bit
So look where the old air range shelter
yeah,
is.
is it there?
You want it there?
Yeah, because it's up around the corner.
Okay. I can only ask because it's not the parish council's responsibility. We help towards the grass and hedge content, but I can ask the trustees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay then. Is that it?
Just one more thing, if I may, it may not be relevant, but I read recently on the internet that the parish council has been slated somewhat for supposedly booking all of its meetings for the mornings. In this little magazine, this clearly states that for January through to December 15, that is not the case. Majority of the meetings are in the evening.
Yeah, well, the reason we have some of them in the morning is twofold. If young mums want to come, their children at school. The other thing is, this is the largest parish, this is the largest village in the
Yes,
parish.
I understand.
And we cannot hold a meeting in this hall in the evening, it is booked.
No, I'm not just going.
I'm just explaining it, that's why we are doing
it. It's been published on the internet
for people to read and it's misconstrued.
Yeah.
But your meetings are basically held in the mornings, which they're not. The timetable clearly states the majority of them are for evenings.
Yes.
So I'd like whoever publishes that to make sure they get their facts right before they put
Thank
it into print.
Very quickly, Bill.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I would like to bring up a point of order. How many of the new council are served on the committee of the Ningwood Residents Association?
Only one now, Bill.
Just one?
Yes, because I
That's
stepped
all
down.
right. So I thought there was more than one.
No, it's not anymore, but councillor who's going to step down. Okay, that's all then. Thank you, folks. Oh, sorry. Do beg your pardon.
Very sorry. I was just going to ask if you guys could possibly sit in the same position because I don't know any of your names and I'm from the county press and I'd quite like to get quite. That's okay.
I wonder why someone's so young.
No, it's only between because Val told me that she wasn't coming and I just suddenly remembered when you sat down. Ah, yes. Well, this is the clerk. So
I know Sally from the precious service.
I hand over to it.
Yeah, I just know if I could get the names, please, in order. So I've got you down as numbers.